Ah, hello everybody. My name is Remys Kosm. I am the Surveyor from the Crimson Star, and welcome back to the stream. It's been a week and about a half since I last streamed. I think the last stream I did was Smash, probably. But hey, I'm back. I'm here to talk and stream and all that stuff. And hopefully we'll be easing back into the scheduling, or the streaming schedule is something that I'm usually very good at. Mostly, I mean, look, I hit the general time frame, you know? But anyway. Where was I for the past week and a half? Well, I went to visit the snowy tundra. And, you may not know this, but I usually don't go where it snows. Usually where I live it's not very snowy, and when and if it does snow, which is rarely, mind you, I usually stay inside and just cuddle up by the fireplace because you know, it's chilly. And while I prefer the cold to the heat just by virtue of it being, I can put on as many layers as I want, however, I can only rip off so much flesh before, you know, it's not so viable anymore. But yeah, I went on a trip with a bunch of friends out into the snowy tundra. And boy, do I have a lot of stories to recount. But before that, which is sort of the meat and potatoes of this whole stream, current events. I usually start off streams sort of easing into current events just because, you know, what else is there to talk about? Well, for once I actually do have material to talk about, but, you know, it's good practice. Just start with simple things that, off the top of the dome, what can you say? You see, this is why I'm a bad streamer, because I can't just shotgun topics, and also because I live under a rock, and, you know, current events aren't really my thing. But hey, I noticed a trend, and I've also noticed that some of you may be Zoomers who have very low attention spans, so I got something for you guys. Hold on. Boom. There you go. I've done my duty to all Zoomers. You can now rest easy. Your attention spans have been salvaged. And maybe I should make it... Nah, I'm sure it's just fine the size it is. This has probably been a thing since way before I discovered it. And I say I discovered it. A friend showed me this, like, while I was on my trip, but hey. Also, no, I will not be showing any photos because, one, I usually just don't take photos. And two, you know, the whole VTuber anonymity thing. But yeah. It's weird, I had so many current events that I wanted to talk about, but now it's sort of like, oh. It just eludes me. Well, I guess I can talk about my trip then. First things first. When we got there, actually just parking was a nightmare. Because we had to shovel out the driveway. And, you know, maybe this is just me not driving all that frequently, but I thought it was fairly doable just off the bat. But, you know, I wasn't the one driving it. You know, there was enough width for the truck to get in, but there wasn't much space to maneuver, so I guess that was the whole deal. And also, we didn't have chains on the tires, so actually getting onto the fitting within the width was a bit rough. Anyway, that was the first thing, and you may clown on me for this, but despite going out and traveling, we didn't actually leave the lodge all that much. Which, you know, you might consider that heretical. Because why would you go travel to a place if you're not going to go sightseeing? Well, you got me. It's all I really have to say. We probably should have gone out and explored more, but also, a lot of the stuff there was just straight up closed. Or decrepit. Like they had a museum of sorts, but it was a museum only in name. It was more like a cut down train facility, which was alright, I guess. But most of the time we were just messing around in the snow and stuff. And as someone who doesn't go snowball fighting almost ever, like the last time I did was probably before puberty. You do not really need to make snowballs. Like, there are perfectly good, throwable, compact chunks of snow that you can just find with a keen eye. It's amazing. Granted, they're probably hard and icy, but a little ice never hurt anybody. And I guess, you know, snowball fight isn't much fun to describe, just because, you know, it's something you have to experience rather than verbally depict. But I will say, there were a lot of those, sometimes it looks like some big boulders got frozen over, you know? And boy did I picked those things up and started slugging him like the Beast Titan. You have no clue. I have never felt so immaculately strong, despite probably never being weaker in my life. Granted, I couldn't throw them the way, what was his name in the Attack on Titan? Zeke. I couldn't throw him the way Zeke could, but yeah, I tried lobbing him. And as is common within my sort of traveling stories, did a bit of drinking. Introduced my friend group to my favorite thing, Vodka. As you can tell from the name, Sprite plus vodka. Very simple, very nice. I suggest drinking it in a 2:1 ratio. And, you know, normally vodka is just straight up the taste of ethanol as far as anyone's concerned. With Sprite, masks the flavor, which is brilliant. What can I say? Got my friends hooked on it. I mean, I was also the guy who got my friends hooked on vodka for a bit in the first place, but hey, what can I say? I'm not the alcoholic one. So if I'm gonna get them hooked on something, it might as well be the good stuff, you know? That's no ramifications for me. I only drink in social settings. Yeah. What did we do while intoxicated? Well, I should preface this by saying that, unlike my other drinking stories, I was not heavily inebriated this time. Which is kind of boring, but, you know. I wanted to be in proper shape, because we were, you know, we were in a nice new place. We had a lot of plans to do. And, let me think. We had our standard little toast. We went for extra shots. And then, I think, oh yeah, we did karaoke basically right after that. And it was funny, because basically, we had one group that immediately after drinking we went to karaoke, and we just started belting songs for about, I want to say an hour or an hour 30. And then after that, there was like a little pause of 30 or so minutes, where the first group got conked out or otherwise moseyed off to their own lodgings. And by lodgings, I just mean rooms. Then, after that 30-minute hiatus, the other group came out of their rooms doing who knows what. I don't really know. I wasn't checking. And then they also sung, and I was the only, like, consistent factor between those. And I know in the sort of VTubing scene, karaoke is a little different than it is in Western circles. And what I mean by that is, say in like anime and all that, when you do karaoke, it's usually just one person. They go up, they sing. Like they cue the song, they sing it, and then next person, you know? It's very much so a one person sing. In my experience in Western karaoke, it's usually you cue songs that everybody knows, so that everybody sings and has a good time. You know, they're still, you know, the people with the mics are gonna be the loudest, they're gonna give more, but still, it's more just, I want to say it's more chill. I don't feel like this sort of anime-esque karaoke has much pressure to it, unless, you know, you personally don't want to. Singing, I guess? I don't know, it's a bit weird. Anyway. That's that. If you're wondering what sort of songs were on the playlist, there was MCR for one. Well, that was group 2. We did MCR and La La Land, which is... How can you get much more different? Let me think. Oh, I queued up some Hades Town and... What else did I queue? I think I queued Simple Plan. You have to understand, while I was not inebriated, I was quite sleepy, a little eepy, if you will. And I will always say this, but being sleep deprived is essentially tantamount to being drunk. And you can't, and it is, like, as far as I'm concerned, the easiest thing to get crossed with. It's just having a substance and also being sleepy, so there you go. My memory on specifics, like what was queued, is not quite up to par. Actually, I think I queued Hades Town with the first group. Yeah. Did we queue any Japanese songs? No. Unfortunately not. I'm pretty much the only old school weeb there, which means that the songs I know won't be songs that my group knew. They're the sort of new blood weebs, you know what I mean by that? Like, my friend group would not know Haruhi, which is probably a baffling thing to say for anyone who was a weeb like even a decade ago. But hey, it's fine. Anime has become a lot more normalized. I mean, I guess that things like Cowboy Bebop were always sort of in the mainstream. Like, you wouldn't get dogged on for watching it, but that's that sort of genre? Their subcategory of publicly acceptable anime has expanded greatly to include things like Attack on Titan, you know? So that was that. Also, I was awake after that second group, finished karaoke and fucked off. And the thing I usually do when we go on trips is that under the cover of nightfall, like some sort of criminal. It was like 5 a.m. in the morning, and I'm just up, cleaning up dishes and other stuff, and general messes that were left because, you know, drunk people aren't usually the best at cleaning. So yeah, that was how the first day ended. Day 2 was a bit more... Well, I woke up at 9. I'll preface it with that. And as you can figure, being awake on 4 hours of sleep, not ideal. Strangely enough, I didn't sleep until the next day, but hey, adrenaline's a hell of a drug. We visited a local lake, which was, I have to say, it wasn't very eventful. The lake was not very eventful. But at the lake, we did pseudo wrestling. And I say pseudo because it wasn't really, there weren't really rules. It was more so if you touch the ground, you lose. We didn't really have any set rules, I guess. I mean, no one was punching, but that's just sort of implied. And as you may have gathered from the things I tweet, the things I say, I'm not much of a strong boy anymore. In fact, I am what many would consider a twig. I have not been able to work out in 2 years now, because I legitimately think that the calorie intake would not match what I would need to build muscle from working out. Also, the fact that I think that burning calories in my current state would not be a great idea. But I ain't no pussy. I'm going to go and do this. I'm going to wrestle. And I'm going to wrestle with all my heart. I lost twice. I won once. The one I won against was taller than me, but probably about the same or slightly higher. Like sort of height to mass ratio. Because he's taller than me by about like 2 inches. But I don't think he's that much heavier. Actually, I lost 3 times, but one of them was a joke. Because it was April Fool's, right? And I was fake flirting with my bro. Because what better way is there for straight dudes to fuck around than to act gay? But that's a whole nother topic. But anyway. This discarding the part where... No, you know, I won't discard it because I think it's funny. And it's worth telling. So basically, after I got pseudo-trucked by my first opponent, my good friend of 15 years now, which, mind you, I feel like I should have won that. I didn't get skill issued, I got a stat issued, because I know a little bit of wrestling, in that I know a bit of the theory, the motions you should go through, you know? And so, I got a perfect hold on his forward leg. And if I had any comparable amount of muscle to what I had previously, I would have tossed him like a rag. Because that was a phenomenal position. But I just couldn't. My little twig arms were like pushing up, trying to get some of those nice leg muscles and thunder size in, which I no longer have thunder size, mind you, but trying to channel that hind muscle connection. I just couldn't budge him. It was one of the saddest experiences of my life, because prior to these past 2 years, it would have been a complete reversal. Not in like results, because it would have been more than a reversal in results. I would have trucked him in 5 seconds flat. But it was unfortunate. I had the bare position. I couldn't capitalize on it because of my twig arms now, and I just got trucked. Like legitimately tossed like a rag. Well, no, I didn't get tossed. It was more so that he pinned me. Well, I'm getting the order of events mixed up. The pin comes later. But after that, they were like... After that, we had a couple more rounds, and they were like, well, what are we going to do for a safe word? And I was like, well, why would you need a safe word for whoever touches the ground first? That seems a bit odd. But then they were like, yeah, let's do pineapple. And it's fine just to have it in case. And I was like, okay, whatever. And then the dude that I was flirting with, because it was April Fool's, and I was doing a little hee-hee-hee-ha, I get matched up against him, and I'm like, oh, I have a wonderful idea. I could probably win just by virtue of being aggressive, because that's how I beat the other guy. But now that we have a safe word in play, I have an even better idea. So, as soon as it started, I charge him, I grab him by the shirt underneath the sort of armpits, you know? And then I pull as hard as I can, and I'm screaming, pineapple! Pineapple! And, you know? Pull him so hard that I land flat on my back. I lose. But it's fine. Because I got my joke in. And that's all that matters. Anyway. After that, I look at my boy, who I had the good position and lost against, and I say, run it back. I know I'm going to lose, but I just want to have fun, you know? And he's like, okay. But let's make it more interesting. Let's do pins. And I'm like, oh, I'm all for that. So, we get stanced up, toss out all the things in our pockets, which for me is a couple of knives and my sunglasses, which is probably more expensive than the rest of my fit put together. And for him, it was just like his phone and wallet and stuff. So, we're in the stance. I grab his leg again. It doesn't work. Again, go figure. I didn't miraculously gain back all my muscle after that one confrontation. But here's the thing, right? He does pretty much the same move that puts me to the ground. Unfortunately, what he doesn't know is that he puts me to the ground back up. So stomach to the ground. And what he doesn't know, or maybe doesn't remember, is that ever since the 6th grade, I have been an expert at getting out of that position. And that might sound sus. However, it is not. Because when we had science camp, I got stuck stomach down in wrestling by someone twice my weight, and I got out of that. And I learned how to get out of that. That's that mind-muscle connection that failed me for just tossing him, but it got me in this case. So, it happened. I do basically what's essentially just a push-up. And then with my snake-like tendons, I coil around him and get him sort of on his side, but at a bit of a diagonal onto the ground. And I'm like, this is perfect. I hear the count starting. I hear it almost get to 3. We're doing a count to 5 for some reason, which I think is weird. But I hear it get to 3. It's getting to 3. And then he just tosses me. This is the most hilarious thing I think I've ever experienced in my physical endeavors. This guy literally rolls me off of him. I go heels overhead. Basically, a roll. I don't know how to describe it. A front roll, but backwards. Like a back roll. But also not something that I myself intended to do. Like an unwilling back roll. I don't know how to describe it. I'm not an MMA chud. He rolls me, and then while I'm still discombobulated from, getting rolled by someone who I usually consider to be more twiggy than me. Which, you know, he has been working out, so he is actually strong. It's just that, you know, the mentality doesn't evaporate overnight. He gets me, and he does the right thing. He gets me back to the ground. And look, even if I can do a pop-up, getting out from a pin is, I feel, infinitely harder if your back's to the ground. Like, maybe in a fight, it's better than having your stomach to the ground. But in wrestling, like, what am I gonna do? I can't do as nearly as good a push-up with my arms facing away from the ground, you know? My legs were out of juice, so yeah. Five count, and I'm out of the game. Then we go back to the lodge. I'm feeling fine. I had no illusions of winning my wrestling matches because, you know, Twig Man. But it's fine, it's fine. Let me think. At the lodge, there weren't nearly as many drinks. I feel like we clearly did not plan enough for the trip. Like, there's a bit of leftover Fireball. There's no more vodka, mind you. And I think there was a bit of soju left. And look, I think soju is one of the most mediocre alcohols out there. Hilariously overhyped, and I'm not doing that to be one of those classic modern contrarians. No, I legitimately think that it's not that impressive. Like, look. The taste is decent. I think the aftertaste is pretty awful. But outside of that, like, it's 12% alcohol content. For the purpose of getting drunk, you'd be better off just chugging down beer. Because beer tastes bad, but at least it goes down easy. Anyway. Wait. I was going to talk about the slightly buzzed Just Dance session, but before that, we were playing Switchboards. And I've never played Switch Sports before just because, you know, it's not Wii Sports. You're just a cheap knockoff. Anyway. We start off with volleyball. And I'm like, okay. My boy, the guy who tossed me. He didn't toss me. It was just he sort of outplayed me, and he rolled me over his back in some strange way that I can't really describe. But that guy, my friend of 15 years, he plays volleyball actually. And so we're doing 2v2s. And you know, a lot of it is pretty intuitive, right? You just flick the wrist up a little bit, or if you want to serve, it's the same motion. Basically, all the motions in Switch Sports Volleyball is just that motion, right? The wrist flicking up. But the way you end volleyball games is spiking. Everyone knows this. And so when we were playing Switch Sports, you would intuitively think that the way to spike is to do that motion, like the opposite of the flick up, a flick down. Doesn't work. So we're like, okay. So maybe it's again just flick up for some inane reason. Completely unintuitive, but maybe. Doesn't work. So we're just sitting here in this way too long match where we're just sitting there like, oh, set. Oh, here it goes, nice and easy to you. And it's funny because the game auto jumps for you. Like, it's like, oh, here it comes. It's time for you to spike ladies and gentlemen. So it auto jumps. It puts you up there, poised to. Is it? I think it's spike in volleyball. You're poised to spike, but since we don't know the input on it, these silly little Joy-Con motion controls, they just go like, oh, okay, and then they tap it over. It does a little. It has a little purple line behind it, a purple wavy line behind it to show that you fucked up immensely. But that's okay. That's okay. Eventually, we reasoned out that you had to do it significantly earlier than it would visually seem. And you may be like, okay, but maybe that's to account for your arm extension, right? No. It was way earlier than that too. But that's okay. Now, after that, there was tennis. And tennis, you know, also quite intuitive. There's only forehand and backhand. There's also smash, I guess, but that's also very rare. I don't really know the criteria for making that happen. My assumption is that if the opponent does not reach the correct position to return the ball, then it does you messed up purple line, and then you can retaliate with a smash. However, I don't really have that in concrete. So, basically, even though there's only forehand and backhand, the way you angle the tennis ball after each hit is not the direction that you pointed, but actually it's just the timing. So there were a lot of times where that ball flew out, and if you've ever played this game, if you've ever played real tennis too, less so real tennis, more so badminton, but we'll get to badminton. The amount of times that people slide halfway across the court to hit a ball that's out is insane. It's mind-boggling. Like, you can visually see that ball is zooming. It's already out of bounds. You must realize. But then they go Jumanji to save it. The hit that's also out of bounds, mind you. It's baffling. It's baffling. I can't describe it. It just hurts each time. Especially because it's always my partner. My doubles. My other half. We just don't get it. After that was bowling. And, you know, I had a tough point score to beat. Because the profile I was playing on had a bowling score of like 239. Which, if you don't know, that's essentially just a perfect game of bowling. Because if you spare your first bowling toss of the next like set, I guess, the set of 2 is doubled. If you get a strike, then all of your next thing is doubled. For you to get 239 in what is, I believe, 10 rounds, where the last 10th round is 3 if you get a strike/spare. You need to do basically perfect throws each time. I think you would only have the leeway of missing 1. But I did good. I won. Granted, I won with like 179, but I still won, which I think is pretty good for a first time. Granted. There's a lot of things you do in bowling, right? If you don't know, the end of a bowling track is oiled. Wait a minute. No, the entire bowling track is oiled, except for the end. I think there's a little patch where that isn't oiled, right before the pins. Which means when you toss the ball, it'll basically go on that trajectory once you've thrown it, until it hits that little strip that is not oiled, and then whatever spin you have on the ball, it will take on that angle only once it hits the strip. And then, once it goes off that strip, it will continue on that path. It's basically the entire concept behind throwing curveballs. And a pretty good way of getting strikes consistently is essentially just throw it a bit off-center at the opposite angle with an inward curve comparative to you. And what it'll do is if you aim it correctly and spin it correctly, the bowling ball will go towards, I don't know which number pin it is, but second and third from center, and then it will curve inwards towards first and second, towards center and one from center. And the way the bowling pins will fly from there is optimal for a strike. Which Force doesn't have that. Well, it does have that, but it's not very nice. And what I found was much easier and much more consistent is you just line it up dead center. I'm Mike Tyson. Dead center. And you just toss it as hard as you can. The consistency of spikes doing that was insane. It's why I went from last place to first place. And I went from getting very low points to ending with 179. That's okay. Because next was golfing, which is also something I'm a bit familiar with. So the first thing that I noticed was the UI. When you swing, there's a bar. And after you swing, if you overswing, there's a wobbly red bar. And I said, well, what do those represent? And my friend said, the gray outline bar is the power. And the red... well, no. The gray outline bar is your wrist torque. How much your wrist torqued during your swing. And they said the red bar, the red curvy bar, is if you overswung. If you put too much power, or I guess they track it through speed, into your swing. And I say, okay, that seems a bit silly, because turning your wrist, you know, in actual golf, once you do a full extension, then you cock your wrist, and then as you swing down, you torque your wrist more to get it back to that initial position to undo the corking. Or not corking, cocking. They say, it's whatever. So then I go through it, and then I realize quickly that the game only actually registers the swing after you've passed the initial calibration point. That's why when you do golfing in Switch Sports, you calibrate by pointing straight to the ground and pressing X. I was like, I see now. Which is a bit more accurate, you know? Because in golf, once you're supposed to get the initial torque of the wrists once you've hit the ball. Because otherwise it's not going to go straight, it's going to go left, right, not center. So, I get 2 back-to-back perfect shots. Actually perfect. The bar was maxed but not into the red, and it was completely straight. No torquing of the wrist. First shot. Immaculate. There, let me reset the Subway Surfers for you Zoomers. Perfect shot. Does not hit the bunker. It's just in the fair. Wonderful. Wunderbar. What's the second shot? Same perfect shot. But it dinks a tree. And all of a sudden, my immaculate play, the best play you've ever seen. You see the little golf ball, you see it? How? And you might say, oh well, Remys, why would you aim at a tree? You don't understand. The guy who went before me did subpar shots, but he followed the same trajectory as me, and he didn't hit the tree. It was lower power. It cleared the tree. How? My shot? My perfect shot? Or his golf ball cleared the tree, mine did not? Excuse me? Intolerable. Insufferable. Why must I suffer this tragedy? But it's all okay, because then we went to badminton. And most of my friend group played badminton in high school. And we pretty much filled out the varsity slots. Granted, I only ever played VAR doubles, boys varsity doubles, varsity 3, and varsity boys singles varsity 3. If you don't know, in other sports, varsity is just sort of the sort of big leagues for your school. It's a competitive one. In other sports, I don't really think there's a hard cap for varsity. In badminton, there is a hard cap. There's 15 varsity players. And there's 3 varsity per section. Varsity boys singles, there's 3 of them. Varsity girls singles, 3 of them, so 6 total. Varsity boys doubles, so 12 of them. Varsity girls singles doubles, so there's 18 of them. And then varsity mixed doubles, so there's 24 of them, I guess. Yeah, it was 15 varsity spots, not 15 players. Apologies. So I might not have been the most lauded player, but it was mostly because, I was playing doubles with my boy, and I only switched to singles on my last season, so didn't really have time to move up the ranking. When we got onto that Switch Sports, it all just clicked in my head, and boy did I go on a tear. I think I went 12 or so games of badminton with 0 losses. Great streak. Something about it. It just clicked. Everything felt right. The smash, so intuitive. The drop shot, just a trigger press. The hitting angles, same as the way you angle your hands. Just, Initially, I was actually really tilted, because what happens in Switch Sports is that if you hit a drive or a smash, but mostly a drive, and if you don't know, in badminton, a drive is pretty much a horizontal shot. It's something you do to sort of get the opponent to do a quick reaction, or make them change position really quickly. But if you hit a drive or a smash, more often a drive, in Switch Sports with the wrong timing, your stupid character flops forward and just lies there for about 3 seconds, I'd say. And 3 seconds is more than enough time, if you figure, for your opponent to do something, right? Even worse than that is each time you go to the floor, you belly flop essentially, it gives them that fabled switchboard's little purple wavy line behind it, which means that they get their smash for free. Which means if that happens to you, you are guaranteed to lose 100%, unless your opponent fucks up royally, because it's literally just swing the racket and it's over. It's just not winnable. And this is infuriating because if you don't know, you can dive in badminton. But you know what you do after you dive? You're up off the ground in milliseconds. Because it's not just something that we couldn't figure out logically. And it's so abundantly clear that if you're on the ground in badminton, in doubles, you're just a fat liability. Not only are you not contributing to covering your part of the field, court, but also you're literally just a tripping hazard for your teammate. It's infuriating. Also, for some reason, the Switchboards badminton game doesn't have doubles, but that's fine by me because I got to go with my Tear. It's something else. It's something else to just see a badminton game where your character will belly flop for 3 uninterrupted seconds. No attempt to get up. And just lie there after a dive. I mean, I guess it's kind of similar to maybe in like racing games. Like, not like car racing, like running games, if those are a thing, I don't really know. If your character stops and stops on the ground panting. Like, that's also not a thing we do in track or cross country or anything like that. At the very least, you want to be walking. And even walking is looked down upon in those sports, because that essentially just means you don't know how to pace yourself. In those sports, you want to be running somewhere from between 85 to 95% of full capacity at all times. 85% I'd say if you're going super long distance, 90 to 95 for, say, track. That being that you would do a ramp up. Maybe for a shorter event like the 100 or 200, you could go 100% the whole way. But that also kind of goes against the entire concept of 100%, so yeah. It's a whole thing. So then, that's enough of the Switch Sports. I basically just spent a bit of time explaining sports in general that I've had experience with in the past, but hey. Mansplaining is a real thing, and boy am I a perpetuator. Anyway, we get to Just Dance, right? And this is after the drinking. We get a little buzzed. No one's actually inebriated at this point because, well, we did most of the drinking day 1, and there's not much left. But there were other substances. I'll leave it to your imagination. It's probably the one you're thinking of. No, I did not partake. I have a bit of a bias against it. But hey, that was on the table. And here's the funny part. So, the one guy who brought him was like, oh, these are, it was chocolate, so he starts cutting them up. He's like, oh, these are 5 grams. And these long ones are 10 grams. And I'm like, okay, seems easy enough. Don't care. but still cool. And then one of my friends was like, what was the amount that gets newcomers messed up again? And then he's like, oh yeah, 5 grams. It's like, okay. And so then our ultra lightweight friend, who she gets intoxicated off of like 2 or 3 shots, mind you, was like, give me like a tiny piece of that. And so boy just takes a knife, cuts off a small corner of one of the chocolates. Fast forward about not even 30 minutes, like 20 minutes, because mind you, I've been around people who have taken said substance, which is legal in probably most places, but you know, I don't really care about that. And usually what happens is they're like, oh, these ain't hitting. And then fast forward an hour, I can feel it. You know? That's usually how it goes. But this time, no. 20 or so minutes. Tripping balls.
It's an entire thing. It's an entire show.
And, you know, obviously a bit of it is like playing into it. But the rest of it is, I don't know. Fastest metabolism in the West, who knows? Also, I don't know how you could feel anything off of that corner, which was probably like 0.5 grams. But hey, who am I to judge? I've never done it, just because of my personal biases. But yeah, immediately after that was Just Dance. Because we were going to do karaoke, but then same girl was like, but I want to see Remys do Dance Rasputin. Which, if you don't know this about me, because I've obviously never said this on stream before, is that I do a sick Russian sailor dance. Or Cossack dance? You know the one. You know the one with the squats and then the legs out. That's me. That's me. I'm good at it. I liked it. I was good at it. But anyway. I can still do it. Not as cleanly. Because no more thunder size. But I can still do it. It's just a lot more strenuous. But that was sort of why they said, let's get Remys to do the Rasputin. And I was like, okay. Sure. I'm not against it. I'm probably not going to be good at it because it's Just Dance, and to my knowledge, getting a good Just Dance on the first time is pretty difficult. You know, because you have to go through the right motions, which you'll have a slight delay on if you're seeing something for the first time. Anyway, we run through a bit first, because, you know, a 0.5 gram edible girl is a bit of a drama major, but not really, because she's doing EECs, or she had a study EECs and a minor in something else. I don't really know. But she was like, I want this to be the main event. So did some other things first. And that was just pretty much standard Just Dance, and she was surprisingly, I guess not surprisingly, but she got like Megastar, which is like, Superstar is like perfect, and Megastar is the thing above that. I'm assuming in like OSU terms, that Superstar is S rank, and then Megastar is doubles or triple S. I don't really know. But then we get to me, and it's my turn to do a Rasputin. And on the little thing for Just Dance 2019, it says Rasputin, difficulty easy, but effort extreme. And that sort of doesn't correlate in my head, you know? But I'm like, okay, whatever. And it starts, and it's very simple. It's just arms crossed, and then clap, clap, clap. In tune with the song. And I'm like, okay, this seems very doable. And then it gets going. And then it's a lot of leg movement. I'm like, okay. This is fine. It very quickly becomes not fine. Because 90% of the dance is doing leg extensions in quick succession to doing, like, half squats. And I'm thinking to myself, my kneecaps might legitimately shatter from this. But it's okay, because it will be funny. That's my explanation for most things. It will be funny. And unfortunately, my kneecaps did not shatter, but look, I just said that because for some reason I did the transition of unfortunately, which doesn't really make sense in this situation, but hey. The crazy thing about that Rasputin dance is the ending, you know? Because at the end, you basically do a jump, do like a triple axel spin, and then land. And I don't know how your kneecaps are supposed to recover from that. Actually, psychotic. But yeah, that was what I was up to.